Hello and welcome back to the Successful CEO podcast. We have Sarah Jansel here today. She is the Shopify Queen. She builds awesome websites on Shopify and Kajabi. She's a speaker and podcast host of I Created That. And she's the CEO of Jansel and Co. Welcome, Sarah. I'm so excited to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much for hosting me. I'm pumped to be here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening, the funniest thing just happened with Sarah and I. So Sarah, we actually live in the same city. We've never met in person. And I happened to see Sarah tagged through one of my friends' stories she posted because she just went to a local event that you just hosted. And I was like, that's how I got connected. And then Sarah's like, well, actually, we were connected a few years ago. So we just made this connection, this awareness piece where Sarah used to actually have a clothing business, and I ordered some of her clothing products about 4 years ago, was it?
Yeah, probably a few years ago now. Yeah, so such a small world.
And I didn't even realize. And then as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this makes so much sense. Okay, so
Yeah.
if you just want to share with everyone how you became the Shopify Queen, how did this even unfold? You went from a clothing business to, and it was all online, I believe,
Yep.
right? To now being the Shopify Queen, helping people build awesome websites, Kajabi, Shopify, a speaker, a podcast host. Share it all.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, it sounds like a lot when you say that. I'm like, how do I do all of these things?
How did, and it was in like 3 years. It was in 2020. I'm just like, you're blowing me away right now. Successful CEO. That's why you're on here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And thanks for having me again. Yeah, I mean, I worked 20 years in corporate. So a lot of people who meet me now in kind of my entrepreneurial space don't necessarily know that. But I spent 20 years working for banks, consulting firms, the whole nine yards. I worked for a tech company here in town, was Carfax. So I helped build their building over at the factory and everything. So did a lot of really cool things. But there was at some point in my career, I realized it just really wasn't lighting me up anymore and was just craving a real sense of creativity. And I will call it the an entrepreneur in me that I kind of stifled for a few years because I was like, that's crazy. I've been building this awesome career. Like, how could I possibly leave a VP job and do this? Like, that just doesn't make sense. Then fast forward to 2018, and it would just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks that I was like, I need to do something about this. So I was like, not prepared to leave corporate, but definitely prepared to do something different. So I decided on a vacation with my husband, I'm like, this is what I need to do. I'm going to start a fashion biz. Like, passionate about it. Yeah, oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm gonna bring the California vibes to Canada. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna bring everything in from California because I love that style and started the fashion biz. And it was really fun. So I was working both jobs. And then in 2020, so a few years later, the business was getting fairly successful. And I was like, okay, like I'm going to try to scale this thing, and hired a coach in March of 2020, which we all know what that timeline was like. And at that point, we kind of rescheduled because it was supposed to be an in-person thing. And a few months later, when I finally met with her, she was like, Sarah, like at this point, I know we're supposed to be talking about you, but like I have a few clients that actually need your help. People desperately need to get online. So would you be willing to work with people? And I was like, sure, like always willing to help out. Not really sure what I'm going to charge or do, but that sounds great. And took a few clients on and realized very quickly, like, whoa, okay, so this is what I was missing. It was like that perfect blend of creativity and business kind of meshed together, and just really helping people see that they can do this. They can make a business. So within 2 months, I resigned and left my VP job. It was really fast. Yeah. And sort of just been kind of working through things. The rest is kind of history. So, yeah, that was how I got that start.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So you're totally showing everyone what's possible just through your story. Like 2 months from starting and going, okay, I guess it can help, to leaving your corporate job. So it definitely shows, the people who are listening that like anything can happen. There was a few things that came through though, as you were sharing your story. One was paying attention to when things do feel off. So,
Hmm.
like there's going to be people who are listening who are like, I don't feel excited or lit by the current job. Maybe they just started a business, or maybe they want to start a business. And so for you, you just knew something was off. You knew that you wanted a change. You weren't sure what it was going to be, but you just didn't feel lit. So that's one thing, is to notice your body or just your mood, or yeah, if you're just feeling like I'm not happy. So paying attention to that. And then also too, it was like following some of the things that excited you, that did light you
Mhm.
up. So going on that trip, getting inspired, and then bringing the California vibes here, starting that clothing line. And then the other thing too is being open to, I believe in like higher power, higher source, universe, whatever, synchronicities, whatever you want to believe in, but it came before you. It's not like you knew something was off. You knew there was something different for you. You started with the clothing, and then it was like the opportunity came your way. And I think so many people, they know something's off, and then it's almost like it's being forced. And it's like, give me the answers now. What's going to be the big thing? And it's like, just follow today, what feels good for you. And then universe is going to give you, like my own stories, just as crazy, with like universe presenting and unfolding it before you. And then it's up to you to say yes or no. And you were courageous enough and brave enough to go, okay, I'll take this on. And then you took the big leap.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So do you have anything to say on that though? With like, I don't know if did it feel like it was just like, whoa, like everything was lined up, the stars were aligned. Did it feel like that? Or is this like the opportunity came your way?
Yeah, I would say a lot of the things you were saying. So, like mind, body, spirit, health, like there were probably too many years that I put
Mhm.
off that feeling that I was meant for something more, wanted to do something different. But, society, my own thoughts, all of the
Yes.
things really kept me in that corporate box. And so it was all my own thinking of like, how could I I've worked so much for this. Like, how could I possibly leave this? And I talk about this a lot in my keynote speech because it's one of the stories that I share. And it's like, it didn't even matter that that was the case because there were so many signs pointing to other things. And the only person that was really repressing that was me.
Mhm.
And, having the belief in myself to take that leap and know that this is all kind of lining up for a reason. And sure enough, when I opened myself up to opportunity and possibility, and albeit I did that pretty quickly, and that may not be for everyone, I'm like, what is one small leap that you can take? It doesn't have to be a jump like what I did, but it was like, I just knew, and it didn't happen overnight either, but it's like, I just knew that there was an opportunity here. It was in the pandemic. People needed this service. I'm like, I know how to do this. Like, how did I get in this room with this coach? Right? Like, this is something that I need to try. And it's making me feel really, really excited. So I do feel like the more I've been successful in business, it's always come from the things where I just knew I was having fun or it was a good time or things like that versus that like push and pull you feel when you just know something's up, but you're not doing something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you touched on the leap doesn't have to always be this massive, big, crazy leap. And for myself, it was actually quite a few years before I took that bigger leap where I started building my product company and I was making bath bombs and soaps and making a little bit of extra money. And then it got to the point where I could go down to part-time, but I didn't take that full leap of I'm leaving my teaching job. It just didn't feel like the right timing. Financially, the business wasn't there yet. And so it did take me quite a few years. It was, I would say about, well, I mean, I just resigned in September. So,
Oh,
and I've been
wow.
doing the
Yeah.
business for 7 years, but I had taken 2 years of a leave. So you could do that with your job. So I still had taken a leave, but didn't fully leave the teaching job. So, everyone's scenario is going to be different. There's no right or wrong way. And you can, your timing messages felt like this is a no-brainer, like let's go, let's do this, even though it was really scary. But it may have been at the point where your business was just like, whoa, I can't keep up with this. Right? Like you're
Hmm.
working the corporate, you're probably making really good money in the business, you're loving it, you can't keep up. Like you'll just know. I feel like you know the right timing of when it's like, let's go.
Yeah. And there's no other bigger feeling of being uncomfortable when you know and you're in that indecision. I
Mm,
find that that moment of like, I know I want to go, but I'm not allowing myself to yet. And, it's kind of like I haven't fully made the decision, but really I had made the decision.
yeah.
I just wasn't articulating that.
Well, and you know what can
Yeah.
happen too, and this happened to me the year before I took those leaves of absences, was it was the worst year ever. So I went down to the part-time because I was like, hey, financially not ready. This is the safer thing. And I knew also to my partner, right? Like there's other people involved. So I was like, I don't know what he would think. And what if I don't, like, there's all these things in my mind where it was like, what if it's not bringing in enough money? So I'm like, I'll do part-time. I'll start with that. And it was the year of like hell going to teaching the kids. I have 3 kids. They kept getting sick. So I had to keep calling in sick. And my husband had to call in sick on his days. And then we had one daycare quit on us. So I suddenly had no childcare. Then I found another, and then she got a job. So then it was just the craziest, worst year ever. And then by the end, my husband was like, yeah, maybe you should just take a full leave, because it was so stressful to try to see, like, are you going to take the sick day? I have none left. Are you going? And especially being a teacher, continually not
Hmm.
being there, there's a lot of pressure there as well. So that was like the big sign. So sometimes, you may be like, I'm going to ease into this. I'm not going to take the big leap. And then it was like universe was like, oh yeah, okay, well, we're just going to throw some boulders your way if you're not going to listen and take the leap. So the next year it was a different story. And now I'm not a teacher anymore.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah. They were getting all kinds of signs there, I think for sure.
Mm, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you doing now? If you want to explain to everyone what your gifts are, like what lights you up, what are the services you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. So I started as Sarah Jansel and was doing a lot of like, let's show you how to do what I do. And I did that for about 9 months. And I took a few months after I was working in that. I loved it, had coaching programs, all kinds of things. And people in those programs, like it was successful, but there was just something that wasn't quite a fit. And so in 2021, late 2021, we switched to Jansel and Co. And I actually brought a few people on to help to do a few things. We've got a really incredible graphic designer and brand specialist because everybody that comes to us for a website usually needs a logo or something done. We were doing websites and it was all centered around done for you services. So while the coaching still absolutely has a place in my heart and my business, it's not at the forefront because I find a lot of people are really well intended and come into it thinking, well, I just want to learn how. But the truth is, they don't really have the time or the space, or in some cases, it's just not a passion. So we are like, hey, let us do it for you. We'll get you a new website built. We'll redesign it. We can help you with custom work, email marketing, logo, like all the things that you need. And then at the end, we'll show you exactly what you need to know to be dangerous. Because we also understand that as a business owner, especially if you're new to this, you do need to have enough autonomy in your business to be able to do the thing that you need to do. So that's kind of what we do on the bread and butter side of things. As well, I have a podcast. So as you mentioned, I created that podcast, and it's really a way for me to be able to interview people because as I became an entrepreneur, there was a lot to learn, I feel like. And, I was coming into all of these new things like how to market yourself online and how to do email marketing, or what about PR and where does this have a place, and all of the things. And just some of the really incredible people you meet that you're like, wow, you really left and did that as a business. Like, that's so cool. So it's a way to really feature people who are experts or people that are out there like doing the thing so that others can really learn from them. And I feel like I learned a ton on that podcast as well. And then the speaking part really came from for years, like for years and years and years, I've done speaking as my exec gig and all of those things. But in my business and being online the last few years, I'm like, man, I'm really missing being out and connecting with people. And so I know we got connected because you'd seen I had thrown an event in town, gave my keynote speech, and I'm like, there's kind of two purposes. One is I just really want to be out and connecting with more people because I miss that, and that's just what makes me tick. And two is I'm really excited to get out and give a keynote to actually share with people that you should be inspired to know that there are things that are going to come up for you in life, and you have to believe in yourself enough to kind of get past those things so they don't cap you. So that's kind of the premise on that side of things.
Oh my gosh, perfect segue into what I was going to ask you next.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing that about your podcast. So everyone go check it out. It's I Created That. And we'll put the link in the show notes as well.
Sure.
And then yeah, any speaking events that you're organizing or that you're going to be speaking at coming up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I'm definitely going to need to do a part two in London. So
Yes.
TBD on details there. Although I'm thinking maybe a brunch or something might be cool. We didn't just do a speaking gig, it was also a big networking event. So we had 50 women in the room and my husband. And we did a bunch of really cool stuff to really connect people because I just feel like that's been really missing, especially in our city as well.
Yeah.
So there'll be something coming for that soon. But I've got a few events. I've got an event in Vancouver where I'm going to be speaking at, which is all for entrepreneurs, and a few other things. We'll see. Maybe a California trip, which is also near and dear to my heart. But I kind of do a mix. Like I do talk about the inspirational side of things and how to have belief in yourself because I just really am passionate that you should be able to build a life and a business that you love. Like everybody should have that, right? But not only that, I do a ton of tech talks. So people love to pick my brain on the tech side. How do I start a business with $0 in inventory? Like there's all kinds of cool things that I love to share now that I've kind of really gotten into the weeds on things. So there'll be a mix of things I think we'll see over the next few months.
I was going to ask that too. I was going to say, do you speak about how to build your, Shopify or your
A
Kajabi?
ton.
It's kind of like a blend of both things as well. So the mindset
Yeah.
and that. And then when it comes to like going out to Vancouver, is this something that came your way where someone asked you? Like, how does that happen where you're invited? I'm asking you this actually because this is something I just written in my journal is like, I want to manifest this. I want to start. It's just this like, how you just kind of have this desire, this yearning. I don't know
Hmm.
how it's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. And I have been invited to speak at events. I'm like, actually, I already manifested it, but I want it to be more where like I'm actually getting on a plane because there's a couple
Hmm.
that I'm going to be speaking at locally, not in the city, but like a couple hours drive. I'm like, no, I actually want to like be able. So when you said Vancouver, I was like, I want to do that. I'm jumping on that plane with you. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
How has this happened? I mean, I feel like, again, this is going to be universe just presenting it to me. I put it out to the world. It's going to happen, but I just feel like we're having this conversation for a reason.
Yeah, definitely we are. I just got back from Nashville too. So there's kind of a mix of things. I would say Vancouver, I was asked, Nashville, I applied. So it's kind of a
Yes.
mix.
Okay.
And
Yeah. I saw that in
yes,
your stories. I was like, oh, that looks so, I just
yeah,
like that adventure,
so
It's like,
fun.
do you have young kids at all or kids?
No, I
I
don't.
didn't
I
ask
have a
you that.
cat.
A cat. Okay. Well, just someone watches your cat then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, he's basically my child, I think. But
Exactly.
yeah. No, it's kind of a mix, I would say. I actually, even though I've been speaking and content wise, I feel like I have that nailed. I actually hired someone to work with who was teaching me how to actually run speaking as a business because I was like, okay, how do you actually go out and find speaking gigs? Like I'm assuming you have to do a certain number or people actually need to see that you're out there for them to then come to you and be like, oh, I saw you speaking, now I'm interested in you. So it's kind of like there's a little bit of both. You get like the I'm applying and like, what do I need to apply? And then the other. The gig out in Vancouver is actually, I was a co author in a book. I think the year that I left my corporate job and I had written it, it was called Pursuit 365. I was in there with 365 other women. It was like one woman a day that they were featuring in their stories. And so I had done that. And they're actually having an event finally 3 years later because every year they produced a best-selling book for that and they are going to have, I think there's at least 200 people that are going. So I was like, yeah, that's amazing, definitely going to that event, getting some time on stage, and we'll also have a booth about like come ask an expert, which will be cool. So
Love it.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, so good. Okay, so let's dive into the mindset. So what is like we'll pick one. What is one key, like you're like hands down when it comes to mindset that you see stops a lot of entrepreneurs, or maybe something you continually encounter and it's something you're working on almost daily to work through?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I would say when I left corporate, I feel like and if anybody's in corporate, you might appreciate this, or has just left will appreciate this. I knew how to be really good at corporate, like really good at my job. And, you're kind of rewarded for certain behaviors and activities and things like that. But then when you get out on your own, suddenly you're like, okay, but it's just me here now. Right. And I feel like for years, and I'm very open about this, for years, there were lots of things, there were lots of, I'll call them like mini traumas and things that we just go through in life that I just had not dealt with because I didn't really have to, because I could just keep climbing the ladder. I could just take another course or get that MBA or whatever it is, and like not worry about it. And then when I became an entrepreneur and was trying to do things on my own, and it is not that simple, right? Like some things come really easy and other things are like, wow, I have to figure out how to market myself, or I have to figure out how to, get people on my email list, or, do a social media account or things like that. Just things that are new. I find the inner critic or some of the past traumas of things where it's like the imposter syndrome that comes in, or just like, the little things that we tell ourselves, like maybe I can't do that, or this is hard, or like you want to throw the towel in, like those things are typically things because there's things under the surface. And so I do joke that leaving and being an entrepreneur was probably the biggest personal development journey of my life, because I think you suddenly have to deal with those things in order to kind of up level. And a lot of times that might look like hiring a coach, or being more open to having people come in and help you with your business, or recognizing maybe there's an area that you're not skilled at, and that's okay if it's your website or it's your finances or whatever it is. Like there are people that can help with that. And so I think there's a required amount of more openness, I would say, and having to try to tell the inner critic to kind of simmer down a little bit and just go get the help that you need. You don't have to know it all like you did in corporate or show up a certain way. And so I think for me and a lot of my clients that I work with, I do see that difference a lot of times, where it's like you've come from being an expert and now you're delving into something that you don't know everything about. And so there's some uncertainty or some instability, it feels like, a little bit in that space. And that's okay. Just embrace that, because you're going to be able to work through that. And no one's expecting you to know it all. But I do feel like it's something that I see people struggle with a little bit.
Yeah. One thing that I talk about a lot with my brand on my social media is you can be really gifted in what you do and have this beautiful medicine. But when you choose to be an online entrepreneur, that's not what's going to sell. Like this is the thing, when you choose to be an online entrepreneur, even though you may be a really great artist or an amazing, incredible healer, you also have to know how to, like you're saying, some of these skills with the marketing and branding, and have this website, like the message has to be conveyed of the value that you bring to the table. So that's something that I talk about a lot. And this is where it's like, yeah, reaching out to someone like you who can, your team who can actually help with some of these things, and then hiring the mentors or doing the trainings and programs. I mean, I'm continually learning every day, even though I train other people on selling and marketing and branding and mindset and all of that. I'm still upgrading. It's not something, this is like a continual everyday thing to be able to kind of master this online space. It's so different than corporate or being a teacher, especially if you do want to be successful as an online entrepreneur. It's like there's a lot to learn, and you don't have to know it all, and you can get some people on your team or to help you to do it for you, or to help you learn how to do it as well.
Yeah, and I think there's a level of vulnerability that people aren't as comfortable with that I think is actually a game changer for your business. Like I would say, the more that you open up and say, I'm going through this, or I'm working through this, or I'm building this, and like, that whole, think about it like behind the scenes, really, right? Like the way that you can spin that, it's like behind the scenes, this is what's really going on. And I would say the more that I have embraced that, or the more I have seen clients embrace that, the more I have seen others embrace them, because they become more like a real human, someone that is relatable, that's authentic, that is just, doing the thing, and not caring about, the fact that they might not show up a certain way, because nobody really wants you to anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple more questions before we end our time together. So these are some fun, kind of juicy questions. What was one of the biggest leaps you've ever taken, going into being an entrepreneur?
Ooh, going into being an entrepreneur.
Or if you can think about any other thing that comes to mind where you're like, okay,
Yeah.
this is just crazy. Share it.
Yeah. I mean, I think deciding to leave the VP job after 2 months was pretty crazy. But it was like, I would say I've been thinking about this for a very long time. So just something that I didn't do right away. So that would have been number one. And then I think number two, deciding to really leap into this speaking side of my business. So I first started a podcast and I was like, I knew nothing about podcasting and was like, at first had never seen myself as a podcaster. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. I feel like there's messages that need to get out there that people really need to hear. And so that was what totally sold me on, we should be talking about these things or we should be educating on these trends or getting into that. And so I feel like it's like what you were saying earlier. It's like I've taken these what felt like big leaps, but they were just kind of like stepping stones, like one thing onto the next thing, onto the next thing. And, next thing you know, you're getting on a plane to go to Vancouver, right? Like didn't see that like 3 years ago.
You're reminding me of when I first started. I had another podcast before, and I remember the first episode I was going to record. I was so nervous. Now I'm like, why? But it was the first time. It was like, it's being vulnerable, the whole speaking, even though it was a microphone, there was no audience in front of me. And I just remember like kind of shaking a little, like my heart's racing. And then I just really brought it back to like, this isn't about you. This is how can we help? How can I give value? There's people waiting to hear this message. So as soon as I turned it around to I'm helping, it really helped me to be like, it's not about you right now and how nervous you are. This message needs to get out. But yeah, it's crazy. And then you're going on a plane. It's like you can go from never imagining that you would do a podcast to then you do, and then now you're flying across the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, last thing. This is the funnest question. Can you tell the audience something that is maybe unexpected about you, like nobody would ever guess, or just like something crazy about you?
Yeah, I feel like there's two things popping into my head. One is I was actually a total closet fashion person behind the scenes in my corporate life, and people always saw that through outfits. But what they didn't know was that I was actually doing fashion shows and like magazines and different things that came in while I was working at my corporate job. And it was like my second life. And I remember when things would come into the office, there was like a business magazine I did for something locally. And I literally went and took the magazine back to my office because I didn't want anyone to know about it. So it was like total closet thing, but that was like kind of what fostered my passion.
And then everyone at corporate was like thinking it came out of left field, this whole fashion line. You're like, no,
totally.
I've been in magazines and doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of crazy. Yeah. No one knew. I was in film festivals, the whole 9 year. I had like a total other personality that needed to be unleashed.
I love it. Okay. I thought you said there was two, or was that?
Oh, yes, there's a second thing. And so the other thing is, and people are starting to see this, is I've been joking about this love of fall. So I'm totally one of these annoying people who can't get enough of pumpkin spice and like all things fall. Are you? Okay. Yeah. So the whole persona and my algorithm was totally catching up with me last year. So I joked that like maybe I should open up a fall store or something, that's theme related. And then I got busy and didn't do anything. And then this year it's kind of caught up with me again. And I'm like, okay, this is the second time around. So there might be something happening this summer. It's just starting to get the wheels turning, but let's just say there may be something fashion and fall related coming.
I feel like you just said like two of my favorite words. So
yes,
I'll be like keeping my eyes peeled for this. Ooh,
yeah.
Cliffhanger. See, now I have to watch you and follow.
Right?
We're all going to be wondering. I love it.
Totally.
Okay, well, thank you for coming on. This was amazing to have you. Where can we find you? I'll put it in the show notes, but if you can let everyone know where they can find you, what's going on in your world right now, any programs, trainings, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I hang out on Instagram a lot at Sarah Jansel. So come check me out there. All my links are there, and you're going to get some stuff that's about fall for sure. And a lot of that's actually well intended because we are starting to prep. And I mean, you would know this too as a store owner, as we're thinking about products and things like that. The holiday shopping season is going to be coming up in September before we know it. So this summer we'll have some things. I've got a really cool thing coming on gift guides and a few other things that will just help people to embrace what's going to happen, be busy, and hopefully make them earn, as much as they can during that time. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
All right. Thank you. It was so great being here.